C Biz, what's good with you, man?
What it do, man? Thank you for having me, man. I made it, incognito.
Hey, man, so I'm glad to have you here. Thank you for Fade to Black, for inviting us into his, establishment, his barbershop.
Definitely.
But since it's your first time on the platform, let's take it to the beginning, man. So you from Guyana, right?
Yeah, I was born in Guyana. I lived in Guyana, I want to say about 4 years. Yeah, I didn't live there long, but I remember everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was beautiful.
And then you moved to New York when you were like what, in your toddler ages or something like that?
No, I moved right after like 4 years old. Yeah.
4 years old.
So I moved
okay.
right to Crown Heights in the beginning of the crack era.
And that must have been a culture shock for you.
Not really. Again, I was still young. Had I moved when I was a teenager, it would probably been a culture shock for me. But I didn't live in Guyana long enough to even though I knew what it was, I didn't live there to soak it in as much. Because, I had family members that moved to Brooklyn in their 20s. So that was a hell of a culture shock for them. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I didn't really have a time to be, So it's like when Tarzan got dropped off in the jungle. He was a baby. So it was like he didn't know, you know what I'm saying? They dropped him off and he adapted. Like quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And we're gonna touch about it later. Dorians Favorite, your memoir.
Yes.
But you did refer to it in your memoir that you're Dorian's favorite. That's your grandmother, right?
Yes, that's my grandmother.
So how does that work with the dynamic in your family?
With the other kids?
Yeah, with the other kids.
I recently found out from my mother that my father was possibly her favorite kid too.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't her first grandchild. That's the crazy part. I was like my grandmother that mad kid. Shit, we'd be here all day. But I'm probably like number 6 or 7 down the line. And I was just her favorite. I remember my mother telling me a story. It's actually my dad's mother. My mother was telling me a story. She was like, yo, when you was born, your grandmother wanted to name you after one of her favorite nephews. Yeah. So my middle name, which I'm not gonna say, is named after one of her nephews and stuff. So I remember being up under her, you know what I mean, getting whatever I want, pushing my cousins down steps and not getting in trouble. Yeah. So of course, when I was thinking about it, and it was crazy when I came up with the album title, I was just playing. I was on Twitter or Facebook. I said, if I ever drop an album, I'm gonna call it Dorian's Favorite. Yeah. And here we are.
As far as your family goes, it seemed like you came in a very loving environment. Can you talk about your dynamic between your mom and your pops or whatever, as far as growing up?
Well, I won't say it was that loving. I got love from my mother, not my father.
Okay.
My pops, you know how they say the child got to pay for the adults eventually later on, and I had to break the cycle when it came to my kids. My pops wasn't very loving or very communicative, whatever the word is, right?
Yeah.
My mother, on the other hand, hugged, told us she loved us a lot. And that I see that, in me now with my kids. I didn't have that with my pops at all. Okay. I don't remember my pops hugging me. I don't remember my pops telling me he loved me. So that thing, I really hold on to it a lot. So I do it every day with my kids. Okay. To make sure they have it. But as far as my aunts, I had a few aunts, of course, Doreen, it was always, they embrace.
Yeah. You think that's a problem as far as the Caribbean household?
Of course it is.
The fathers being kind of a little bit too hard on their kids?
Hell yeah. And that to me, it comes down from back in the slavery days. And across the board, not even just Caribbean, a lot of old school men, period. Right. The fathers from our generations was trash, most of them. I'm assuming that they got it from their dad. And none of them wanted to break the cycle, but the cycle ends with our generation. Because you see some of the best fathers in our generation now, us, we was nah, hell no, we ain't going through that. But I think it all derives from slavery, man. It goes way back, and nobody want to have that conversation. Because I couldn't imagine my kids having a conversation I had about my pops to somebody. My kids would never talk about me in that way. My pops never hugged me, never told me he loved me. They would never, in fact, they're probably my dad probably smothered me, you know what I mean? But I'd rather drown my kids in love than have them complain about that.
So go back to your childhood, when you first moved there in the crack era.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch on it too much because I want people to go listen to your memoir.
Yeah, of course.
But what was the biggest thing that you could like remember that was like, yo, this shit is like serious?
It was two things that I remember distinctively. I was in a crack house, inside of a crack house where one of my boys actually lived. His mother, I went to pick him up from school, and I spoke about it, in detail on the album. But being in a crack house, not knowing I was in a crack house till I actually left the crack house, I was like, wait, that was a crack house. You know what I'm saying? Like, it had all the familiar symptoms of a crack house. Fiends laying here, fiends laying here, fiends laying there, crack valve, crack valve, crack valve. And to know that his mother was on crack was crazy. I was like, damn, his mother. Because the joke was, your mama a crackhead. That was the biggest joke.
Yeah.
But if you said it, you wasn't saying it in a joke back then. Yo, your mother crackhead, you get punched in the face.
Right.
And that was one bad part that I saw. But the other part I saw was the money. I had teenage friends that were millionaires. I'm not even saying it to sound cool, but that's what it was. Like, when you watch Paid in Full, that was real to me.
Right.
I saw that. Like, I necessarily didn't see Rich Porter and Alpo, but it was guys like him. It was a guy in my neighborhood named Stone that I spoke about on the album who was like a hero to me. Like, he embodied the cliche hustler, had the cars matching his sneakers, all the girls was on him. He had the golds on his mouth, the gold on his neck, the big watch, you know what I mean? And every time I see him, it looked like it was Christmas. It was Christmas, baby.
Touch on one more thing off the, Dorian's Favorite. We're still
I'll talk about it. It's all
We're
good.
still gonna touch some more stuff on it. No, but I really want people to listen to it because the atmosphere that Dorian's Favorite have, like every single track on there, when you talking and the instrumentals behind it, like you're immersed in it. You feel me?
Yeah.
So I really want people to go listen to it. But as far as your idols, besides, I believe it's your uncle, right? That you said you looked up to. Yeah. Was it? Can you just elaborate on your uncle and how he
You see how I spoke about that guy Stone?
Yes.
My uncle was Stone on steroids. He was Thanos.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, literally, he's come outside with all the Infinity Stones on his hand, go like this, got all the new cars. Every time I seen he went like this, new chain, new whip. Literally, I'm not even being funny. Come around, and this time, I'm real impressionable. I'm watching the rap videos. I'm like, yo, look at Kane. Oh, that's fly. Look at Hammer. All these dudes. I see my uncle with the same shit. So I'm confused now.
Yeah.
I'm asking the street guys, yo, why y'all dressing like the rappers? It was like the record stop. What? They looking like us. What are you talking about? Yeah. And that's when I found out the rappers are trying to be like the neighborhood guys. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because at one point, and I remember I recently had this conversation with my uncle, and I actually had it in the Caribbean. I went to see him, and he and I brought it up, and he looked at me. He's like, "How you remember all that? You were so small, but I told you I was impressionable. I soaked everything in."
Yeah.
I said, I remember you had the red drop top, and I kept bringing that up because I saw that Big Daddy Kane had it in a magazine, and I would always compare, like, my uncle got that. Like, my uncle got more money than Big Daddy Kane. What you talking about? He had the big chain, and I was like, y'all remember when you had that? And he was smiling from ear to ear. He was just like, how you remember that? And I remember he used to bring me outside, and I seen his stuff, and seen stuff I wasn't supposed to see, but yo, that was like some superhero shit to me, man, because during that time, it was in my neighborhood, we didn't have, the plumbers, the guys working the 9 to 5 weren't celebrated. Even though now I look back, do your thing, I'm not even knocking it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we wanted to be the drug dealers. That was the first sign of success in my neighborhood. Like, the first sign of success was a neighborhood hustler. You liked it because he had, wherever the girls were, I wanted to be. He was like a magnet for the girls and a magnet for the police too, but the doctors, lawyers, nurses, the accountants weren't signs of success to me. I wanted to be that.